89.5 FM KPOO, Give Life, Save Life Radio. Brother Keith, and welcome to another edition. I want to say hello to everyone who's joining us. The late, great Marvin Gaye, and of course, his music still stays alive, and of course, is like a marching band in our spirits. And of course, even back then, you know, he was speaking real. And I do remember it was the Motown review play, Valerie B., that I got a chance to really see the great works that Smokey Robinson was able to pour into Marvin Gaye. And even back then, he wanted to write his own music as a platform of what he stands for. And just very grateful, just, you know, his music still lives on, especially in the place where we are today, moving forward. And just want to welcome everybody in to Give Life, Save Life Radio. And of course, you know, this has been like a rash of events that has resurfaced, and it's starting really to grieve my spirit. I want to thank the ladies, the co-host, Valerie B. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be back.
Yeah, coming from Southern California. Welcome back. You got the sunshine all over your face. And
can you see it?
I still see it.
Love it.
Thank you for joining us and coming back on. And how was your journey down in Southern California?
It was nice. It was just a little road trip. Nothing really fancy, but got a chance to reconnect with some old friends. As a matter of fact, a beautiful African sister of Islam that I reconnected with, and hopefully we'll be hearing a lot more from her. She has a lot to share with our Give Life, Save Life family, the things that the women of Islam do and how they are helping the black community, and how she wants to help and become a member of the Give Life, Save Life family. So, and
she touched base on a couple of things as far as health and wellness, how to eat to live, and other things.
She's very informed on the body and how to eat to live, obviously, and she's a big follower of, I think there's 2 volumes of the book, but just really simple things that we all need to be doing that's best for our bodies, things that we shouldn't be doing that we thought were good for our bodies. So a lot of insight that she could share with us. So we're just looking forward to that.
Great. And of course, we have our correspondent, Miss Ren Monroe.
Hello, everybody.
And you know, the things that you bring to our program has not only enlightened others, but it has enlightened me, and I want to thank you for that. I'm glad you're on the team.
I thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, so thank you so much.
Yeah, so I mean, even though we still have issues, and of course we bring different topics to Give Life, Save Life, but I just want to share with our listeners, our main goal here is to present a platform for whatever, you know, you want to bring to the table, but most importantly, just as long it's contributing to saving lives in your community. I welcome that for anyone that has a voice, and this is just a platform. And of course, I just want to thank you once again, Ren, and can't wait to hear your segment for today.
Oh, thank you so much.
Can't wait to hear it. And you know, we have to wake up as a people, even though we're going through this revisiting the harshness of blatant racism. It's always been in our face, but right now it's just really outrageous, and we have to take a stand. Either we're going to be about it, or we're just going to, as Martin Luther King said, I'm not taking it lightly, as the words that he said, you know, turn the other cheek. But that
I
cheek
think those days are over.
Yeah,
and
the cheek is starting to turn black and blue now because we keep turning the cheek. But, you know, and again, we have to take a stand. And a lot of our people has fallen back asleep. And then there's a large percentage we don't want to know. We don't want to know. So with your segment, Ren, we're going to bring it to you. We're just going to bring it.
And that's my main goal. What I want to give back to the community with what I bring is just a different perspective, freedom from the old way of understanding, you know, white supremacy and the things we're going through as a community. So you remember the first quote I had that from Einstein, that you can't solve the problem from the same consciousness that created it.
Right, I do.
So I'm hoping to bring another consciousness.
Right.
And then we know what to do at that point. You don't need a leader.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Yeah, and
I
that's
just wanna
another.
bring a different perspective.
That's another show too. But when we say black leaders,
Yeah,
no one's leading us.
right.
No one's leading us.
Right.
And and of course, everyone saw the eulogy of Pastor Pinckney, and may he rest in peace. But how our president, did the eulogy and broke out, for the grace, and he's going to embrace grace,
Mm-hmm.
and then he starts singing Amazing Grace. But do we really know the meaning of that?
I don't think a lot of us know, because I've been guilty, of singing the song and just singing it for something else, not even knowing the background or the foundation.
Right. And that was like a spiritual hymnal that,
Right.
We were brought up on, and that strength and,
Right.
amazing grace.
And to find
Yeah.
out later on that it was written by a very man that hates the African Americans. It's like, and here we are, and that's supposed to be the happy song that we're all going to rise up and, just forget about everything else because, grace is amazing. And,
Well,
so.
Valerie B., you brought it out, saying that you were guilty of it, and I'm sure a large percentage of our people was guilty of it, as it was a song of healing, a song of soothing,
Right.
and a spiritual hymn that would bring us, or have brought us, closer to God. I'm also guilty of it. That was sang in our household.
And I don't
Even
know-
though
Yeah, I don't mean
my
to cut you
parents, I grew up spiritually drunk, and that's the best way I can put it, because me and my siblings were brought up through Catholic school. My mother and father were Methodists, but we still had to go to their church. So I'm
Yeah, that's
singing
a bit
hymnals and then holding the cross at the same time. So, I had to wiggle my way through to find out my true spirituality. And, of course, you were forced to go to church, but they didn't go to church every Sunday. They did their best and everything like that. But I had to hit the ground running and finding out spirituality. And once I got older, here comes Buddhism. Here comes Pentecostal. Here comes the Christian. Here comes the nation. So, I had to do hurdles into finding out what is true religion, because I grew up unbalanced. And I think a lot of us, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm sure a lot of us has taken that road. You go to church, you do this and do that. But once you leave church, what do? You go back to self, or whatever self may be. But that's going to be another topic. So the church, Amazing Grace, and of course, we've been going through so much turmoil in dealing with the racism. 25 years ago, back up to date, the burnings of the church. There's been 7 churches that's been burned since the massacre in South Carolina. And I'm so grateful that we're able to talk about this openly as a team. And listeners, by the way, Ren Monroe, she never bites her tongue on anything. And as we were in the lobby prepping for today's show, she said, in so many words, I don't give a damn about these churches that are being burned. We need to talk about and shed light up on the American dollar. And,
Yes.
Have your way. Educate us. Talk to us.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't care about these churches being burned.
You're being honest, but
I
at the
am.
same time, that's a very sensitive issue.
I know
as
it
you
is.
well know, 25 years ago, now up to date, 2015.
But doesn't that say something that we're still talking about the same thing? We're doing the same things, expecting a different result.
That's
These-
insanity. That's
It
the
is
meaning of insanity.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
The black folks, I'm a black folk, right? And I grew up in the church, and this is why I'm so free to speak about it. I've jumped my share of benches and spoken in tongues. I was Pentecostal for 10 years, so you can't mess with me on this. I've had the hat on and everything. I already
Right.
know what that's about. And I get it. And it's a place to go to kind of heal. And I understand that. But get past that. Because the church can also be a place of strategy if we would just use it for what it was used for during the Civil Rights Movement. That movement was hailed as one of the top military operations in the world by other military leaders. We practice, this is what it feels like to be called an N-word. Don't react. fill the counters, and then get the next group in, fill the jails, overcrowd. So you spark the event, Rosa Parks, you sit on the bus. This was military precision, and the church provided a place for us to have a strategy. So yeah, you have your God and your spirituality, but please put yourself back in the equation, because you do live in this physical world, and to me, God saves you when you get up and make a move.
Wow.
So as far as the church is concerned, and the way that it should be utilized for the benefit of people, other than just the so-called religious aspect of it. Let's say if we were, do you think we can actually ever get back to the church and look at it that way? Like you were saying, that it was being used to help us.
We're going to
and for
have
us
to,
grow?
because that new Jim Crow South is coming. It's coming. We're going right back to Jim Crow South. As white people lose their jobs thanks to TPP, which is going to happen, it is human to take your frustrations out on the next person who you think can't fight back.
Which is someone that
Which is
looks
gonna be
opposite of you.
Yeah, or whoever's nearby who you think isn't as powerful, which that's what they think. I think of black folks, and maybe even to some degree it seems true. Where are our weapons? Where is our organization, and so on and like that, right?
So then let me just ask you really quick, on a few of your first episodes, the segment, Ren, Kettle Black, you kind of alluded, and you didn't really elaborate a lot on it, but to boil it down, that all of these blatant acts of violence that are just right in our faces now towards African Americans, is that also one of the signs that the white supremacist, or the way of thinking, the people in power, that they're afraid? I mean, and now they're resorting back to these primitive control methods.
Yeah, and there are two layers to it. Now, I said domestic white supremacy. The folks who are walking around every day trying to work like you and me to make $1.
Right.
That is in sharp decline. Birth numbers down. They're scrambling. But the supremacy that's white, that controls your access to water, controls your access to
Right,
food,
your
and
sources,
even controls the
yeah.
weather, that's still white. So we want to be really clear there are two levels. I'm talking about domestic, but see, we do live in the domestic level. And yes, there is a fear aspect to just being annihilated in different ways. And I got this from white folks. See, I'm one of those I'm a good black person. I'm one of the good ends that they get comfortable around and talk to.
Bring
I
you
got this
around
from a friend who said, you don't know, she lives in Denver. When we get to our dinner tables, we talk about there are too many Mexicans, there are too many blacks. They're taking the jobs. What if we keep dating outside the race? We'll be gone. That's what.
So that's like a daily conversation, or like you said, around the dinner table.
Yeah. And I think it's completely human to feel that way.
What do we talk about? I mean, you don't.
I think we talk about TV.
Well, most of us, I don't. But you so understand, at our dinner tables, if we're sitting at our dinner tables, we might be discussing
what they're doing to us.
Right.
How can
so
we react?
I mean,
it's natural.
Right.
Yeah. So I do think it's a fear element.
And you know what? And I was listening to a lecture by the Most Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he had mentioned, no, I don't dislike white people.
Right.
He was saying he dislikes what they're doing
Yes, exactly.
to us.
Exactly.
And we have to come to a place of that when we have interaction with the other race, Caucasians. We're dealing with the slave masters' grandchildren, great-grandchildren. You know what I mean?
Right.
Are all white people bad? No, they're not.
No.
I've come across them. I'm sure everybody's come across them. But at the same time, you have to think, are they doing the kindness out of guilt, out of grief, because of what their ancestors has done to us? And, sometimes I trip on that. Is this,
but even if they are,
if this sincere, or is this just like a makeup or a fake as far as wanting to be accepted? Or no, I understand the guilt, I understand the hurt and pain that your ancestors went through, and I entertain that sometimes. What's the real and what's Memorex?
Memorex. I think
Well,
it's complex. They have all
because
the
either way,
emotions.
look at it this way, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate again. But so what if, let's say, if it is real, and out of the trueness of this individual's heart, it's like, oh God, I just cringe every time I think about what you all went through and my ancestors, or someone just has the means, and they just want to make amends. I mean, so what would be the difference? When I say if they're giving back, or if they're trying to make nice.
What do you
I
do?
mean, we never would know, but I'm just saying,
and that goes back to grace, forgiveness. And we talked about this offline earlier. You know, what's the true essence of forgiveness? Is it an action word, or is it just it's just a word that I'm just coming off the top of my head? But do we really forgive? And Ren, you had your perspective on this.
Yeah, I don't think forgiveness exists, really.
And
I don't know. And I can see how you would say it's an action. I actually concede that point. But I think what it really is two things. First, what happens is there's an event that happens and you can see yourself in it. You reconcile within yourself your own feelings, and you get to a point of healing. The other side of it is that you can see that, but by the grace of God, there go you. If I were raised in a white supremacist environment, would I not go into a church and kill 9 people?
And not ask for forgiveness.
And not ask for forgiveness. and not even ask for forgiveness. So,
but you know what? This guy, Dylan Roof, and as he looked behind that pane glass, just his whole demeanor, if looks could kill, based upon what I saw, my perception was, I'm not asking for you guys' forgiveness.
Right.
I did what I did. I'm not asking for forgiveness. And again, this is just from what I saw. He had premeditated this thing here. So again, as the black family, spiritual, religious, however you want to call it, they were led to say we forgive. Okay, and that's fine. But I still think in the back of my mind, the church has a lot to do with it.
Sure. How can they forgive already?
It has a lot to do with it. But at the same time, you have to remember being raised in a religious background and what the word says. And way back then, the ancestors were the one that taught the blacks you're Christian. So it all boils together in saying, do we really forgive from the bottom of my heart? Or is it something that I'm feeling convicted? I have to forgive this person because if not, God won't forgive me.
And I think it's an individual thing, because I can say it and maybe even at that time even mean it, you know, but then later on, you know, you can't erase what's there. Like you say, you can forgive, but you'll never forget. And the not forgetting would make it hard for me to permanently forgive. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a doing. So,
well, this is my personal opinion, and everybody has that opinion. That's just my spirit of forgiving a person, no matter what. No matter what, I have to forgive you.
Okay, but
and that's just Brother Keith.
But when you say you have to forgive, are you actually?
Because you know why? If I don't forgive,
right,
that thing will just tear me up.
True, but
daily, I'll wake up with it,
understand.
and I don't want to. I don't roll like that. I mean, I had to come to a place like that.
True,
I wasn't always like that.
I did too. But what I'm saying is, I know what you're saying. But when you say you have to forgive, I mean, is it inherent in you that you have to forgive, or is something saying, okay, this is the right thing to do, so I have
spiritual
to forgive?
conviction.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Spiritual conviction. Okay. Call it what you want to call it. Okay, so grace, forgiveness.
Who is she?
The family, they forgave. Let's get into let's talk about the flags, and I still can't wait where Ren is going to just break this thing down. Coming up on October 10th, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has called the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March. This time he's bringing Christian leaders, youth, women, children, black, brown, yellow, whoever's going to take a stand. And this year's theme is called Justice or Else. It's time for us to take a stand, people. If you're not able to make it, you can still take a stand by not supporting local merchants, standing by saying, hey, enough is enough. My thing is, in reference to bringing the Christians and the Muslims together, is a powerful movement. It's a powerful statement. Will it stand? Or will you have those Baptist pastors and preachers saying, well, it sounds good, but, well, you know, I just can't do it. where will it end? Where will we take this stand? And of
Right.
course, we're counting up on the women as well, because I'm starting to see the consciousness of the woman saying, "Hey, it is now time to take a stand." It's now.
Well, I
Harriet
think
Tubman
we've always wanted to take a
Sojourner
stand.
Truth.
Okay, but no, okay, but understand. I'm talking
Reed
about.
Newsom.
Okay, well, again, I'm talking about today, sister. Okay, I'm talking about today, and of course, we know Harriet Tubman and everything like that. And Ren, you're shaking your head.
I'm smiling though.
Okay, so again, I'm talking about the sisters who have been under the corporate America. You know what I mean? Corporate America. I'm making $500,000 a year, and then this brother over here, just have a survival job.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see that the sisters are now getting it.
I see.
I know my history. I come from a very powerful, strong woman who's from the South, has been through so much, and she tried her best to take a stand underneath my father, who wasn't educated. My mother went to college. My father only had a third grade education. Coming up back in the day, they had to work. So I do know the powerfulness and the strength of the woman, but I'm saying up to date, 2015, now the woman is really starting to really see, wait a minute, now it's time for me to be up under my husband and really support him. That's what I'm saying. But again, that may not make sense to you, Ren, but it is what it is. And your viewpoint is valid. Valerie B's, yours is valid as well. But I know where I'm at with this thing here. I know where I'm at. Moving forward, you had something to read to us.
Oh, sure. So this is taken from an interview that was just took place, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it. And the professor tells the white woman, "I have no respect for your ancestors." So this interview by Professor Paul Butler might be the most powerful interview anyone has seen in the past several years. And on the Diane Rehm show on NPR, Butler was addressed by a white woman who said that although she agrees that the Confederate flag should be taken down, she wants to show respect for her ancestors, to which Butler replied, "I have no respect for your ancestors. As far as your ancestors are concerned, I shouldn't be a law professor at Georgetown. I should be a slave. That's why they fought the war. I don't understand what it means to be proud of a legacy of terrorism and violence. Last week at this time, I was in Israel. The idea that a German would say, that thing we did called the Holocaust, that was wrong. But I respect the courage of my Nazi ancestors. That wouldn't happen." Butler has his supporters. Even though his remark seems controversial at the time, Dr. Boyce Watkins also says that Butler's assessment on white supremacy is right on point. Somehow we were taught to be nice about the suffering of our ancestors as if it was just a thing of the past that doesn't matter, says Dr. Watkins. Black people shouldn't be polite when speaking about what our ancestors went through. This was our version of the Holocaust. Not only should the Confederate flag be taken down, but we also deserve reparations. Many institutions and fortunes are still standing today because of the wealth that was stolen from black people over the last several hundred years. How sensitive should people be about this issue? So just go ahead and take a look at the video, and you can tell us what you think about it. That's pretty deep.
Now, let me ask you this. Does taking down the flag mean justice? I mean, it doesn't mean the doggone thing to me. Taking down the flag, it still shows disrespect as far as them putting power into the flag, the Confederate flag. What's your viewpoint on that?
I think it belongs in a museum. It's a symbol of the South lost the war. It's kind of funny how they say the blacks need to get over slavery, and I want to say, well, you need to get over losing the Civil War. You did lose. And so put it in a museum. It doesn't belong at the state buildings.
Right.
Right. Just put the American flag up at the state buildings. That's one part of it. But the other part is, if you want to challenge the validity of the Confederate flag, you got to challenge the validity of the American flag.
Right.
Drenched in Native American blood, Black, African blood, Mexican blood, and Asian. The Jim Crow South rules were out here in California for Asian people and ruthless. So, are we going to challenge all the flags?
So tuck it away. Put it in the museum.
That particular one belongs in a museum because they lost already. It's over. States' rights, they lost. There are no states' rights of the South.
Well, so coming up, we have the Ren Monroe segment, and she got some powerful information. What is the Protestant work ethic? And we're going to get into that in a few minutes right here on Give Life, Save Life. So as we continue, thank you so much, Ren, and we might as well just jump into what is the Protestant work ethic.
Well, welcome to the Ren Monroe segment. And the Protestant work ethic is well known as pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to give 110%. It's always 110, never 100. The early bird gets the worm, you see. So it's like the core ethos of the United States and other places, right? And we think that it's pretty harmless. Except when you go back into the origin of the Protestant work ethic, you do come to the 1500s, where the Catholic Church was the main church, and there was a person named Martin Luther. You probably know this stuff, huh? Martin Luther, and he was an Austrian friar, and in his opinion, the Catholic Church was very corrupt. But now keep in mind, let's put this in a human conversation. He is a friar. That means he is abstaining from every joy in life, no sex, don't eat what you want, pray all day, whatever. And he actually started to feel some kind of way about his lifestyle. But he was going to deal with it because he felt it was the road to God. But when the Catholic Church decided, and I like this part of the Catholic Church actually, they have something called sacraments, right? There's grace to help you maintain your salvation. Marriage is one, I believe, and you correct me on anything, Brother Keith, the Eucharist is one when you partake of the body and blood of Christ. You know, there are things that help you aid in your salvation, right? Confession. But for him, the Catholic Church added in now indulgences, where you can also just pay money.
So so the Catholic Church, it seems like whenever they get a whim or whatever, and I'm not trying to, bounce on anyone or anything, but this is just what it seems like to me, that they can change their version of what's right or what's wrong depending on how they're feeling this day or the other. Like you said, now it's like, oh, it's okay to put...
For centuries, they control knowledge. For centuries, especially ever since the Greeks invaded Egypt. Not Greek, the Romans invaded Egypt. So then they had access also to all that knowledge, and it's stored in the bottom of the Catholic Church now, all of the artifacts and
the treasures and artifacts as they sit on the seat that's hidden underneath the actual seat.
Exactly. So they've controlled it for centuries and decided what was knowledge and what wasn't. And he challenged, saying, you're corrupt, and now you're going to let people just pay for their sins? But the church wanted to rebuild, St. Peter's Basilica, the gorgeous cathedral they wanted to rebuild. So they had a reason for that. So to get to the point, though, that was too much for Martin Luther. Too much. So he did something unthinkable in that day. This is the days of Galileo being sentenced to death for saying that the earth revolved around the sun. I mean, you don't challenge the church. But he did, and he put 95, what he called 95 theses. Some people say on the door, and some people say during a meeting, but he gave 95 complaints in the open about the Catholic Church. The people of the day felt like, did you just challenge the church? Salvation was everything, back then. So this is the beginning of what's called the Protestant Reformation. Protest the church. Protestant Reformation. Okay, so I'm going to come down to present day why this matters. There's a book called The Protestant Work Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. It's by Lord have mercy, me and sociology, Max Weber, W-E-B-E-R. And he wrote the book because he noticed that for some reason the Protestants had all the money. It wasn't the Catholics who had all the money. For some reason, if the Protestants just had more and more and more money, and he wanted to know, well, why is that?
It was because they were the early birds getting the worm?
They were the early birds getting the worm, but it's because after Martin Luther made his statement, in Protest of the Church, and the church broke away from the Catholic Church, so whatever, what it means is you now then are on your own. You're responsible for your own. There's no grace for the Protestant. You have to work your way to salvation.
That's right.
So you start to accumulate more and more stuff. You start to save. You start to look at business practices differently, and you hate poverty. There's no grace. And so now when you look at the United States, that's exactly where we are, right? The Protestant ethic, though, the reason I bring it up is it is distinctly white. Where were the Africans during the time that this came up? It's the 1500s, so not quite transatlantic slave trade yet, just before. But the Protestant business person was now traveling around the world. They come to Iberia. They find out from the Arab Muslims that black skin is tantamount to being a slave in the Iberian Peninsula. So they learned that it's okay to enslave us because of something about we're the descendants of Ham, and Ham is Noah's son, and he saw Noah drunk and naked and laughed at him, and God said, I curse you, and now you have black skin. As a symbol
Right,
of that.
there it is.
Yeah.
Right there. Enslavement, captivity,
Yeah.
all of that.
On this.
Right. Go
Exactly.
ahead. This,
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's where it is. So slavery then does come from
And that
the
was the
church.
Old Testament
Yeah.
in the Bible.
Well, and it's in all the religions, though.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So
And that's why we have to, I'm sorry.
No, please
Because,
go
I mean,
on.
I'm like kind of pumped right now. That's
Yeah, I
why
love it.
as we open up the Bible, we have to look in between the words of what they're talking
Mm-hmm.
about as far as slavery, bondage, encampment, Egypt. All of this comes together, but unfortunately, we were taught a certain script
Mm-hmm.
in the Bible from who? The slave masters. All of this was in the Bible. Well, I guess I'm
No, you did
preaching
a
to the
great job.
choir.
Please
I'm
continue.
preaching to the choir.
No.
But all of this has been manipulated as far as the Bible is concerned. And I remember, I think I wasn't here on the show when you talked about, and I was pumped after hearing the tape when you specifically shared that the black preacher or the pastor at the time the ministers were forced to preach among the congregations as the slave master's wife was there
Oh, and the slave master, too.
and the slave master and pouring into us what they wanted us to know.
Exactly. And they were afraid of slave rebellions because Haiti had just overthrown
There you go.
France.
There you go.
And so they're like, we can't let all these people get together and have their own way because
We
they'll
gotta
overthrow
see what's
us.
going on
There's
as
the
well.
fear again.
Right. And
So-
what about, and then the minstrel show?
Well, yeah,
The
and so
minister?
yeah, I know I
What's-
kind of took a dig there, but when you really look, though, all of the stereotypes, the yasamasa, the hooping and the wailing, it's called wailing. That's straight minstrelsy, which was approved by white supremacy. Oh
Right.
yeah, you do all your hooping as long as you don't preach. Rebel
Right.
and think for yourself, then it's fine.
So that's where the hooping comes from.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Hooping and wailing, aha.
Ooh, they can really work one up there, can't they?
It's modern day minstrelsy, which is why it's never challenged. In fact, it's celebrated. Anything, any image, celebrated. In this culture,
And it
you need
still
to look at
holds
it
true
different.
today
Yeah.
with the hooping, and then that's when the
Well, and if you put it next to a minstrel show, it's identical.
Exactly. Because even the congregation, the sisters in front, they have the one or two that she gets happy and
right.
Oh, hidey, hi. You
Yeah.
remember the stereotypes we talked about? You can really see them all, honestly. Yeah, that's the thing.
in a church.
Yeah, you can see them all. So I want to be careful. I know folks are like, oh my, I am not an atheist. I'm not going to spontaneously combust. Okay. I'm just saying, please understand the context within which the black church functions inside of white supremacy. Now, if you look just a little bit before that to your African roots, we demonize voodoo, and I don't mean go get a voodoo doll tomorrow, but I am saying all they did was commune with nature, and they understood they are the direct conduit of God. Direct. There is no intermediary anything. You talk to nature. They abstained from sexuality and channeled that energy into reaching the other side. It wasn't anything barbaric about it. And of course, there's a sacrifice of animals, which is all over,
Right.
all of all religions. So I'm just saying, don't throw out voodoo yet. Just know the history of it. And I'm not saying go get a doll either, but understand the context.
Right.
So back to Protestant work ethic to kind of wrap it up. There are two ethics then. There's the Protestant work ethic, which because of the way it was originated is distinctly white. And then,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. There's the Protestant work ethic. Sorry for the interruption. And then there's that collectivist culture that is the rest of the world, actually, the melanated one, where it's we, collectivist. And there's two different ethics in the United States. And some white people are collectivists too, but I'm just saying they're two different ethics. So you just have to be careful.
Choose who.
You have
Choose
to
one.
really, yeah.
You got to choose one.
And I guess the last little part.
Okay. Let's talk about the black side
Okay, the black
of it
side.
all. But I mean, this is great.
Oh, no, this is great,
This is
yeah.
great information. But as we transition, is there any relationship there?
Yeah, the
All right.
black side of it is, I mean, this, I don't know how to explain it. This whole Protestant ethic is distinctly the United States, being an individual, Yours is different though because you were enslaved. So even like the 4th
Yeah.
of July is coming up. Yay, but you were slaves during the 4th of July.
Right. What are we
Right,
celebrating?
yeah.
What are you celebrating? That's why I'm like, spend your time in your churches being strategic. That's all I
Right.
want.
Yeah.
That's the relation. There is all of this whole. None of this is talking about us.
Right.
None of it is. It's
Because the church could be a very useful tool as
Very.
it was to be.
Yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah.
You know, if we just use it that way, because for a lot of people, it's a social.
Right.
It's a social place. People that don't have anyone, you know, they can come there. Some are going there for the religion, and some are just going because that's their hangout. I'm just going to say it, but when you have that many people together at one time in one place, that's when you need to get busy
Oh,
and do
that's where
something
they go.
constructive.
Well, once
Right.
upon a time, I believe, going to church was getting salvation. Finding God, accepting God, living that lifestyle. I believe. We going to church. I'm seeking God's face, this and the other. But again, like you said, Valerie B, now it's like a social gathering. I can find Mr. Right over there. Look at that sister here. Or, I'm going to go and pay my tithes and all. I mean, is that right? I mean, we can do that. We can pay our tithes on the street.
True. Well, and then that's something else about the tithe too.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, let's.
I mean,
call
I
it-
know what the
okay,
Bible
well,
says.
let's say
It's-
charity.
Right.
Let's say charity.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to buy somebody a meal. Okay, that's my giving.
Right.
How do you give?
I give in a lot of ways, but I don't go.
Okay, so
I'm
for
not-
example, now watch this. I don't want to divert against what we got going on with Ren. So if you find a person that's homeless.
Oh, every day.
Okay,
Here's the thing, and
Oh,
when you mean it like,
I see the
okay, so
picket fence.
he-
I see the picket fence now.
you saw the plank.
Okay.
I make sure, and here's the thing. There have been days, and here's the thing, I'm just that way, and some people don't even bother, but I care about people even if I don't know them, and some of the homeless, and not just some of them, there's a lot of them, blacks and whites. If I have it, I'm going to give it.
Give.
If I have it, I'm going to give it. I've done that so much that sometimes I'm down to my last dollar, but I guarantee you if I see someone that I think needs it more than me, they're going to get it. So we have to, because if we don't do it that way, if we're not doing it any other way, then how are we going to give back? I mean, how are we going to help these people?
Charity. Go ahead,
Right.
Ren.
Well, I guess I'll just close with, as far as the Black church is concerned, what I would like to see with the strategy is to understand that according to Nielsen, and they are the people who rate what you're watching on television, they have a new interest in the Black dollar because we spend apparently $1.3 trillion a year. So we say we have no power, but when you consider that the United States is in debt and owes, let me look at the list here. We owe Japan Japan holds $1.2 trillion of our currency in reserve. We owe them $649 billion, China $354 billion, Britain $249 billion. We have more than all these countries. In fact, they said that the Black dollar, and this is again from Nielsen, let me look at we are the 16th largest gross domestic product in the world, meaning more than Turkey, Australia, Taiwan, Iran, and Poland.
I
name a
mentioned
few.
earlier offline, and that's why I like this little powwows with us. Even before the show, Valerie B, she sent bullet points, during the week, and thank you for that. And of course, you on top, you got your laptop here, and I thank you for that. But it was also brought out from the ministers that we're spending a lot of money during 1 week, which is Black Friday, all the way to Christmas. Billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Say if every black individual would not spend money from Black Friday until
Yeah.
December 25th.
Yeah. It's just a small period of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a week.
And what could we do with it? What land could we buy? What products could we learn
There
to
you
ship
go.
to the rest of the world?
There you go.
How could we change propaganda so they don't see us always as thugs and
Right.
so on and so forth? We have a lot of work to do. And also, I want us to look beyond the United States, which is, I know, it's in decline.
Yeah.
Look beyond that and become a member of the global community. Africa hasn't come to save you. They shipped you right on off the
And didn't care.
And didn't care. No one's coming to save you. And what I wanted to say too is black people are in the belly of the white supremacy beast. Racism based on color started in 1860 here in the United States, distinctly. We're in the belly of it, but we're also in the belly of opportunity. So that's what I like. That's the way I want to see the conversation shift in the church. And all this, praying to a white Jesus somewhere. And you can say he's not white, but I've been in that church. I know when you close your eyes, you see a white Jesus.
and you know what?
Yeah.
Because it's instilled. As we grew up, you saw that picture, on the wall next to Martin Luther
Which was
King.
commissioned by
And
the
it's
Catholic
still there.
Church. It's commissioned by the Catholic Church because during that time it was just after the black Moors had ruled Spain.
Right.
And they were killing they were killing Jewish people, which, okay, that's a debate there, right? They were killing blacks and Muslims. And so it became an uproar. So they changed the face of Jesus to be the son of one of the popes, and his name is Caesar Baglio. That's the picture that we're
Right.
worshiping.
It was just somebody else.
Yeah,
They just
they made it
updated.
white so that you would deflect from red herring the fact that they're still going to kill all the Muslims and the Jews. That's what I mean. When you just really read, why would you go to church and do all? What else
Right.
would you do if you knew the history? Why would you even go?
Ren, you stepped it up as always,
Oh,
as
she always
usual.
does.
Thank you.
I mean, that's a lesson and a blessing
Oh, thank you
that
so
you've
much,
given
Brother
us.
Keith. Valerie B.
You know,
Thank you.
Thank you for
Valerie,
having
I
me.
mean, thank you for having
always
us,
learn.
all of us. I mean, and again, like I said,
Kettle Black.
this is just a platform, as I mentioned, listeners. The contribution as far as saving people's lives in our community, and it's time for us to just really take a stand and educate ourselves.
And if I come across too passionate, it's because I love you. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to be so controversial to the listeners, but I do mean I'm not going to step over the truth for anyone. But it's out of love.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
by you planting that seed, it needs to be watered and passed on, because it's now time for us to have or get our justice.
Yeah.
Am I saying it right?
I think you are.
It's
Works
been
for
too
me.
long.
Yeah.
It's been too long. Ren Moreau, thank you so much for joining us. Continue
you.
the great work.